What up, street gods? The Eric from the Eric Street Charity blog. So I want to share with you this idea I had about how to conquer shyness. So in today's society, probably all societies in the past, shyness is certainly a disadvantage. So what does shyness actually mean? Shyness means being fearful. Being fearful generally of other people. Now, what I like is shyness is something that you could overcome through training and through practice. So some basic ideas. First and foremost, the person I'm actually most grateful to is actually my mom, because she's probably the least shy person I know. I remember actually when I was a kid, I was super duper shy, and just seeing the way my mom interacted with strangers, she would talk to everyone and not be scared of nobody, and some people would call her naive. But ultimately, my mom shaped me to who I was, and I'm actually eternally grateful to her for that. So, first and foremost, I'll just kind of give you some practical ideas. So I think, and I don't know if you're watching this, if you're a guy or girl, it doesn't really matter, but some things that could help everyone. So the first thing is this: start powerlifting. I really do think that ultimately, a lot of conquering shyness, a lot of it is actually physiological, a lot of it is actually hormonal. And, guys and girls both have testosterone, and you start powerlifting, increase your 1 rep maxes, heavy singles for deadlift and squat, you're going to increase your testosterone. And contrary to what people think, testosterone does not make you more aggressive. Testosterone actually makes you more calm, more confident, and actually less petty. And also the nice thing about building some sort of like physical strength is that you tend to stand more erect. Like, even I've noticed, like, as I've been increasing my 1 rep maxes for my deadlifts and squats, I just actually stand taller. And standing taller is a sign of just like, self-confidence. And generally people who tend to have low self-confidence tend to like hunch over, and people who tend to be more confident, it don't even matter how tall or short you are, but like, you see a bunch of short dudes who are super confident. They're short, but they walk with their chest up, chin up, and I actually think that tends to be a good notion. Even I know some guys who are super duper tall who tend to hunch over, who have low self-esteem, low self-confidence. And what causes people to hunch over or stand erect? I don't think it's like bad posture. I think it might just be hormonal. But anyways, so that's one thing. The second thing is actually, I think actually what you eat is actually really, really important. So something I think that like a lot of people don't kind of get is, if you consume foods, certain foods was going to help boost your self-esteem, self-confidence. And the first question to ask yourself, as a human being, are you kind of all about like that kumbaya mentality where everyone just kind of gets along? Or do you consider humans like a predator and the apex predator? So, obviously I like people and I like being friendly and stuff like that, but if I think about this realistically, the world is a cruel world. It's, we all tend to espouse these nice notions of nicety, whatever, but in truth, the world is a cruel place. You weren't asked to be born, and truly everyone is seeking their own self-advantage, often to your downfall. So essentially what I mean to say is like, don't get suckered by other people, and certainly don't get suckered by yourself. So this is actually where I think notions of vegetarianism and veganism is very interesting, because like, if you don't eat animals because of ethical or moralistic ones, I think that's totally cool. I mean, you do you, but if you care about the planet, whatever. But I just think about this more physiologically. So when you consume more red meats, saturated fats, meat in general, you consume more cholesterol. Cholesterol is inside animals, And the more you consume cholesterol, the more you're actually gonna boost your testosterone, which is kind of a good thing. My bad, that was kind of loud. Oh, my ears hurt. Okay, so that was kind of a loud one. Okay, sorry. So essentially, what I mean to say is the more fatty red meat you're gonna eat, you're gonna increase your testosterone too. And if you want to build your social confidence, and then this is just me just speaking very, very practically, I think actually, like, you know, my personal philosophy is that, like, even my personality and character, I'm kind of like friendly aggressive, is, you know, I'm friendly to everyone I meet, but also I'm quite forceful and aggressive in terms of how I interact with other people. And I don't do this because I want to like consume other people, but that's just my personality. I tend to be very assertive, and modern society tells us to be assertive is a bad thing, but I tend to think that to be assertive is a good thing. So eat more animals is one of my very, very pragmatic tips. Also, things to think about is, you know, a lot of people drink alcohol in order to build more social confidence. I mean, yeah, humans have always done that, but I think this also tends to be a crutch because, like, even right now, like, I stopped drinking alcohol, not because of any sort of moralistic ones, it's just because, like, I get hangovers, I get headaches, and I don't really like it. That's fine. But if you always have to drink alcohol before interacting with strangers, it tends to be a crutch. And if the goal is for you to really truly build your self-confidence and conquer your shyness, alcohol seems to be a bad one. Same thing goes with like weed or other drugs. I would actually say probably the best way to build social confidence, which is, you know, pragmatic and legal, is just drink more black coffee. I just find that the more black coffee I drink, no cream, no sugar, the more chatty I get, and the more I could approach other people with less fear. Other things to think about is, you know, just, you know, I have this challenge in my workshops, the 10 No challenge. Approach a bunch of strangers and ask permission to make a portrait of them, and yeah, to keep asking until you get 10 people to say no. So this is a good thing too, because a lot of us just generally have a fear of rejection, but once we actually get rejected, it's kind of not that big of a deal. Other ways you can think about doing this is that, like, next time you're in an elevator with an awkward stranger, just be like, how you doing? This is something that I like, being from living in the East Coast right now. Everyone will ask, how you doing? And then, you know, someone will say, good, how you doing? Good. But veer the conversation. Be like, you know, how you doing? They say, fine. And you say, oh, I'm feeling kind of shitty because I haven't had my cup of coffee today. And so you kind of open up a bridge to some sort of new sort of conversation, which actually makes you connect more with the stranger. Because, and I asked, you know, like, you know, I was thinking, what's the point of talking to strangers? And this is my thought. Talking to strangers is good because when you talk to a stranger, you know, first you might be intimidated or scared of them, but actually once you talk to them, you realize you actually have a lot more in common than you think you do, which is kind of cool, because if you think that we have more in common with strangers than whatever, then that actually will build more empathy with other human beings, and we kind of start to look at others not with xenophobia, which means fear of the other or fear of the foreigner, but xenophilia, which is love of the other, love of the foreigner. And actually that's one thing I love about America the most. Even though, you know, there's obviously a lot of things you could poo-poo about America, I think it is probably one of the most diverse places in the world. And the strength of America, I think, is actually the diversity. And so, you know, I think one of the best ways to build diversity, to become less fearful, essentially to make the world a better place, is just talk to more strangers. I mean, you talk to a stranger, like me being an Asian guy, right? Like, I talk to a lot of people, whether they be Caucasian, African American, Latino, whatever. And, you know, it's kind of cool because people like, yo, like this, like, you know, typically, I think the racist thing is that, like, oh, you know, or the stereotype is that Asian people tend to be shy, especially Asian men, whatever. And so, like, I want to become the change which I wish to see in the world, is that, like, rather than all these, you know, Asian dudes being super antisocial and whatever, I actually strive to be more social, to put myself more out there, And I think it generally tends to be kind of a good thing. Even another thing too is like, you know, talking about Asian male masculinity, this is quite interesting, is that generally the racist notion is Asian men are physically inferior and more effeminate than other type of men, whether compared to like, you know, Latino, Caucasian, or African American, whatever. And so, you know, I'm just gonna strive to turn myself into a Greek god in terms of physical strength and physique, just to prove to myself that, like, even though I'm an Asian with bad genetics, like, my hands are pretty, you know, like, my hands are average size, maybe on the smaller side. My wrists are actually pretty petite, but still I'm gonna, you know, become a monster in the gym and kind of prove that, you know, ultimately all comes down to training. So the goal is with Shyness, it comes down to training, practice. Obviously, the more you get rejected, the more you're gonna build confidence. Sleep a lot, drink a lot of black coffee, start powerlifting, sumo style deadlifts, and eat more meat. And yeah, just make the goal to build your confidence by talking to other people, go out to public more, talk to more strangers, and watch less TV.